On today's show, the Hawks are now 1-0 in the year 2026 after an impressive road win at Madison Square Garden. We'll break it all down and more coming up.
You are Locked On Hawks, your daily Atlanta Hawks podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 2135 of the Locked On Hawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. I am your host, Brad Rowland, coming to you on a Friday evening. It's the first show of 2026 on this podcast. Today's show sponsored by the folks at FanDuel. Before tip-off, check out FanDuel's app and Sheila Shopping during NBA Happy Hour every Friday from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And today, we'll be diving into what became a very nice win for the Hawks, 111-99 on the road at Madison Square Garden up in New York. The Hawks are now 1-0 this year, and they've won 2 straight games after, of course, the extended downturn that they had near the end of 2025. But a rematch for the Hawks and Knicks for the first time in like 6 days. The Hawks had a tough-fought loss at home to the Knicks 6 days ago. Ironically, even with Trae Young out in this game, he did miss this game. It was the third one in a row for Trae with the quad contusion. The Hawks were actually the healthier team in this one, which is not what you expect when one of your star players is out. But the Knicks were down 3 of their top 7. Karl-Anthony Towns, Josh Hart, Mitchell Robinson, all out in this game. And with that said, the folks at FanDuel had the line go down and down and down throughout the day. The Hawks were still underdogs by tip-off, but in talking to people, I thought the Hawks actually were in really good shape in this game, and they outperformed even what I thought. They basically led not wire to wire. They had kind of a rough start in this one, but they played very well after the first 5 minutes, basically. Broke it up to begin the third quarter, had a 26-point lead at one point, and then after a pretty dicey / ugly fourth quarter, we're able to hold on for what became a 12-point win and a very impressive performance from this Hawks team. Even if I'm big on context in all directions, even if you kind of adjust for the fact that the Knicks were not at the full strength in this one, this is a road win against a very good basketball team with no advantages either way, like rest-wise, all that stuff, and the Hawks just played really well for the vast majority of this contest. And when you allowed 99 points, you have to start with defense. I'm big in using kind of pace-free metrics, which basically would take into account like how many possessions there are in the game. It's not all about total points, but when you allow less than 100 points, like that's going to be a headliner, and the Hawks were very, very good on defense in this game. Certainly helps by the fact that the Knicks could not make a three. They were 9 of 43 from three-point range in this game, and that's with 2 makes in the final 2 minutes. I believe there were 7 of 40 at one point were the Knicks, and it was one of the worst shooting performances on a opponent side for the Hawks all year long, and certainly that helps to balance things out. But even if you kind of adjust for that, and I watched all these looks back again, if they had made a more normal amount of threes, which would have been 3 or 4 more probably throughout the course of the game, it would have been a more competitive game, but the Hawks still would have played well defensively, and they definitely did. Like after the first 5 minutes, basically, the Hawks I thought were like pretty outstanding on defense. The Knicks shot 50% on twos in this game, which is very poor. They were below average in the paint on the whole. The Hawks did lose the glass. If you remember 6 days ago, I talked about it on the podcast extensively. The Hawks got just demolished on the glass in the most recent matchup against the Knicks. Part of that is that Mitchell Robinson is pretty much the best rebounder in the entire NBA, and he played tricks on the Hawks throughout that game. And part of that is that the Hawks were not great on the glass, and that was still in the pre-Porzingis world. The Hawks were playing very small. The Knicks were kind of bludgeoning there, and that was probably the biggest difference in that game, quite honestly. Well, you fast forward to this one, and through 3 quarters, it was basically dead even, and that's a huge win for the Hawks. Now, by the end, they lost the glass because in the fourth quarter, the Knicks got like 7 or 8 offensive rebounds pretty quickly. And yeah, no Robinson, no Towns, no Hart, which is, by the way, their top 3 offensive rebounders. So a little bit of context is needed. But the Hawks did a very good job holding up. Anytime this team can hold up to an average level in the defensive glass, given what they've done so far this year as a bottom 5 team in that metric, that's a positive. And I'll come back to this later on. My good friend Kevin Chouinard of Hawks.com shared this, and I definitely agree with it. Porzingis was not great by any means in this game. Like individually, it was not one of his better efforts, but just having another guy that the opponent has to kind of contend with and deal with and plan for, it really matters. And the Hawks are able to play bigger, and those lineups are much more effective on defense and on the glass on the whole. Until the fourth quarter, the Hawks' defensive numbers were outstanding, and they still were pretty good even after 4 quarters. Like they held the Knicks to less than a point per possession. That is excellent work, even when you factor in all the context. They forced turnovers, 15 of them. The Knicks also took 21 free throw attempts, which is a very low number for the Knicks. Only 3 of those for Jalen Brunson. And while offensively, he won't draw the same attention that Jalen Johnson will with a triple-double in this game as he should. Jalen was great in this game as well. I thought Dyson Daniels was absolutely outstanding in this game. On offense, 8 assists, played well, got to the rim. But then defensively, he really, really bothered Jalen Brunson. And Brunson is used to having everything thrown at him. And yeah, he was 1 of 9 from 3 or 1 of 8 from 3, whatever it was. But there were multiple times in this game where Dyson seemed to frustrate Brunson. He challenged him, made his shots difficult all night long. It's never one guy, but Dyson was the primary assignment. And I thought he was really awesome in this one. The only blemish defensively in this game for the Hawks was that they got beat up pretty bad in the transition game. The Knicks had 28 fast break points. That's the 3rd most against the Hawks all year long, which you would be surprised by in a game that it was this low scoring and the Knicks had so much trouble scoring. When the Hawks were able to set their defense, they were awesome. They just didn't get back very often. It just didn't bite them. So it's not going to be as much of a headliner as it might have been if they had lost this game and I was breaking down what transpired in it. It's difficult on the opposite side of the floor to give this full weight, but I'll talk about it in some different fashion. For the full game, the numbers are pretty bad for the offense. They had like a 105, something like that, offensive rating for the game. That's pretty bad. But in the fourth quarter, it was pretty gross. I mean, you can't just erase that. That all matters. The game was not over, and the Hawks had some issues kind of slowing things down and like making good decisions and processing in the fourth quarter. Like there was some issues there that shouldn't be just totally glossed over. But through 3 quarters, it was pretty good offensively. Not great, but pretty good. They shot it better than the Knicks did from 3, but nothing great there. What they were able to do, though, is get to the rim, get into the paint, and put pressure on the rim. 58% on twos in this game. Very, very strong number. 58 points in the paint. Also very good. In a closer game, it might have hurt them that they were 15 of 25 at the free throw line. In fact, the last 3 games, it's been kind of weird. The Hawks are traditionally a pretty good free throw shooting team, at least not a bad one. Like even in the Capella years, it was basically Clint was the only guy on the team that was bad at the free throw line. And coming into the night, the Hawks were 17th. So basically league average at the line this season. The last 3 games, the Hawks are 35 of 58 at the line. That's 60% over 3 games. And fortunately, it has a bit in them, but like that's one where they're going to want to clean that up, I'm sure, in the future. Anyway, as usual, they did very little on the offensive glass. That's a weakness for this team. It's going to probably be the rest of the season. But they did protect the ball, and that's a very important thing. So Atlanta had 13 turnovers in this game. That is a very, very good number against a Knicks team that has some pests to it. You know, Anunoby, Bridges, and McBride are all capable of getting into you and causing some havoc defensively. The Hawks are now 8-4 this season when they have 13 turnovers or less. So it's not a guarantee of a win, but you're going to win way more often than not when you don't turn the ball over a lot. And the Hawks did that in this game and maximizing possessions. If you don't shoot that well, it helps to have more shots. And the Hawks ended up losing the shot battle in this game, but not by a huge margin. And they were actually kind of, I think, leading it going into the fourth quarter, which is very helpful. And look, good balance as well. They had 7 guys with 8 points or more. Jalen was the leader with triple-double, but 45 points combined for Kongwu and Alexander Walker. Luke Kennard was good again here. That's actually 3 games in a row where Luke's been very, very strong off the bench. That's a kind of a sneaky factor in the Hawks playing better basketball recently. And look, if you look at the schedule, and I have, and covered all these games as they went at the same time, this is the first time this year that the Hawks have a win over, in the standings, what is a top-tier team this year. And like I said, not the best version of the Knicks. If the Knicks didn't have Towns, Robinson, and Hart, they probably wouldn't be a great team. That's fair to say. But it was also a road win, and perfect health in the NBA does not really happen. The Hawks were still without Trey in this game. It wasn't they were perfect strength either. And a road win over an established team that it has an identity and a big-time crowd advantage, all those things. One's going to look good on paper in the future. And after ending the 2025 calendar year on a high note, starting the next one on a high note, does that matter? Maybe not. But winning 2 games in a row does, and getting things a little bit on the right track does, especially because they have to go on the road now. They have a back-to-back tomorrow in Toronto. That's actually a tough ask when it comes to going through customs. So a back-to-back that they can certainly win tomorrow, but banking a win and doing so as an underdog on the road is not a small thing. And the Hawks now have pretty good vibes moving forward in the way that they did not have about a week ago when they were losing seemingly every game for 2 weeks or so. All right. In a second, I will dive into how this game unfolded with more detail, as well as a player evaluation segment later on in the podcast. First, though, a word from our partners on the show. Fridays feel different during basketball season. I will certainly attest to that. And FanDuel is making them even better right now. On Friday nights, before games actually tip off at FanDuel, they're giving fans a new way to kick off the weekend with NBA Happy Hour. NBA Happy Hour is your official pregame limited time window where special offers drop inside the FanDuel app right before the action happens to start. Opening the FanDuel app during Happy Hour brings something new to the table when it comes to boosts or bonuses or surprises. It's also really easy to check out all of the weekly specials before tip-off and make a move before the window actually closes. Happy Hour adds a little bit of extra energy to Friday night basketball without having to overthink it at all. And the timing is perfect. Right before the games, right before the weekend happens to start. Fridays from 6 o'clock to 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, have become a appointment viewing with NBA Happy Hour. Plus, the FanDuel also still have everything that you're looking for in the sports betting space, from pregame lines, live lines, a full suite of offerings as well for other sports like football and baseball, hockey, golf, tennis, auto racing, soccer, MMA, boxing, and so much more. So before tip-off, check out the FanDuel app, see what's dropping during NBA Happy Hour every single Friday from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. A little bit of basketball, a little bit of action, and a whole lot of Friday energy. That's NBA Happy Hour. One more time, it's NBA Happy Hour only on FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Thank you, as always, making Locked On Hawks your first listen each and every day. You already live the Your Team Everyday mindset, and now you take it up a level if you want to by going ad-free and joining the Everydayer Club today. Go to lockedonhawks.supercast.com to learn more. And we'll dive in now to how this game kind of unfolded. And if you were not with us at the beginning of this one, the Hawks actually started this game down 11-2. The Knicks made 3 threes in a row to begin the game, basically, including one that was a kick out off an offensive rebound. I was like, all right, here we go again with the defensive rebounding problems and all that. And then from that point forward, the Hawks were pretty much dominant for the next 3 quarters. The Hawks first erased the deficit by scoring 17 points in the next 3.5 minutes. They hit 4 threes, including 3 of 3 from Okongwu to begin the game. I think defensively, their only real bad stretch of the whole game was that first 5 minutes. Because even in the fourth quarter, it was mostly an offensive problem, other than the glass. But defensively, it was a rough start. Like, there's probably some old takes exposed in my Twitter mentions about how I said that they were bad on defense, and they really were. I watched the game back again before recording the podcast. Early on, they were disconnected, like some breakdowns, and then from that point forward, they were kind of locked in and much, much better. Rotationally, it was Porzingis off the bench, which I think is going to be the plan moving forward. If I have to guess right now, the Hawks, in true to form fashion, have not said anything about that specifically, but he still is not playing a huge workload. 17 minutes for KP in this game, but he and Krejci came in mid-quarter. It was Kennard after that as the 8th guy, and then Asa Newell as the 4th big. Moge DNP in this one. That's 2 games in a row where he's been out of the rotation. I don't love that, but it's the decision the Hawks are making, leading offense, and also, Asa. If all things are tied, you might want to lean Asa for development purposes, but I think that teach their own on that. But Quinn tends to lean offense when he has those choices to make. Okongwu got rocked in the face by an accidental headbutt by Kevin McCullough. It was bleeding pretty badly from the face early in the first half. He stayed in a little bit for about a minute and then came out, went to the locker room, had to get stitches. He did come back in the game and still played his normal workload, but that was a kind of bullet dodge because that looked like it could have been kind of nasty, but he played very well in this game and was able to come back. The Hawks were actually up by 9 early in the second quarter after the Knicks missed 9 consecutive shots. I have my notes here that Dyson was awesome in that run. He was defensively and really offensively as well. Luke Kennard made a couple of big shots in this game, including some in the first half. They soundly won the bench versus bench minutes in the first half and really the entire game, and that was a sneaky big part of what happened here because the Knicks have been all year long pretty good off their bench. Not so much today, given that some of their bench guys had to start and all that stuff. The lead was briefly down to 4 late in the first half, but the Knicks couldn't make a 3. They actually missed 15 out of 16 at one point in the first half. That was a huge factor. And then the Hawks had a big run at the end of the first half to go up by 15 points, a 13-2 run. And then they were actually up by 13 at halftime. There was some shot luck for sure, but the Hawks forced 9 turnovers in the first half. That was a very good number. And then offensively, they leveled off a little bit, but got into the lane, and they gave up 17 points in the entire second quarter, which is usually a good number, even if you adjust for pace. Then things broke out a little bit in Atlanta's favor in the third, an 11-4 run right out of the gate to go up by 20. And they never looked back, honestly, until pretty late in this game. They were up as many as 26 points in the third. Things were flowing very well. For example, there was an awesome play where they had a flare screen that Porzingis set for Nickeil Alexander-Walker for a 3 that Jalen found a perfect pass for that. One of those picture moments. And also a reminder, I know that Quinn Snyder takes a lot of heat, and including for me sometimes, about decisions in the rotation. He also runs fantastic stuff on offense, and that gets overlooked if you don't watch it intently. There's a reason why the staff and Quinn are very respected around the league, and it's because he really runs great stuff on offense. At least that's part of it. The Knicks did not shoot well in the third quarter. I think they were 29% from the field in the third, and the Hawks won the quarter by 11 points to break the game open. They were up by 24 points going to the fourth. And honestly, I have in my notes right now, all they need to do is is to avoid giving up a big run right away. Unfortunately, that's what happened in the fourth quarter to make things, I would say, more interesting than they probably should have been. The Knicks scored the first 11 points of the fourth quarter in about 3 minutes to go from down by 24 to down by 13. The Hawks had 7 consecutive empty possessions on offense, and the Knicks had a 3 in the air with 9 minutes to go that would have cut it to 10. And if that goes in, I don't know what would have happened, to be honest with you. It didn't go in, though. And then the 2 biggest shots of the game, maybe in my opinion, as far as like solidifying the results, Luke Kennard hit back-to-back threes when things were very much teetering for the Hawks. And that went from the league going from 13 and maybe giving down to like 10 or 11. And suddenly it was back to 19 again. And it wasn't over at that point, but like that was the big swing in the fourth quarter towards Atlanta. The only one towards Atlanta in the entire fourth quarter was that kind of sequence from Luke, who has, again, been very good in recent days. Also, people were asking about this. I'll address it now. I don't know what was said. I did see on the broadcast, like some others did, that Ricochet was apparently not very happy when he was removed from the game in the fourth quarter. You saw Mo Gay kind of trying to pull him away from getting into it with the staff a little bit. I'm not sure who on the staff, or it was Quinn or Brian Bailey or whoever was over there. Assuming nothing crazy was said, which I think is probably a safe assumption, I kind of like the fire from Zach. People were asking me if this is going to be a problem. Like, I get why it was noticeable on the TV broadcast, but this is a very normal thing on NBA benches. So, like, it wasn't like he stormed off. He didn't leave the bench and go to the locker room. Like, it wasn't like a giant blow up where these guys were having to be separated. He was frustrated. I think that Zach, if I was Zach, just to be honest, I'd be frustrated too. I think he's not played enough this year. I think he played well in this game and was not playing probably as much as I would have played him in this game as well. Like, I don't have a huge problem with this as long as something bigger did not happen that I'm unaware of. But I saw it. It was there. Not a huge deal in my opinion, because I've been around. I've been courtside for enough NBA games. A lot of stuff gets said that you don't necessarily hear, and it's not, it's in a competitive nature. Quinn's competitive, Zach's competitive. Like, I wouldn't worry about it unless we hear something else that I am not aware of at this point in time. Anyway, the league got down to 9. It was never really in doubt, I don't think. Like, there was a couple times where it was like, all right, if things go badly for the next 2 minutes, they might be in trouble. But once the Kennard shots happened, the Hawks were probably a 95+% win probability the entire rest of the way. It was 9, but it was not down to 9 so there was like 2 minutes or less left in the game. And I will say, after they rebounded well the whole game, they were bad in the fourth quarter, and that led to some of the push that the Knicks made. But the bigger problem was the offense in the fourth, which I alluded to earlier, just put some more numbers on it. The Hawks were 5 of 17 from the floor with 4 turnovers in the fourth quarter. That is how you get to an ugly number that kind of, threatened to make things kind of ugly. They scored 17 points in the fourth quarter. That's the only way the Hawks could have lost this game, was to have an absolute offensive outage in the fourth. And they kind of did, but they were able to defend enough to withstand that. And look, it was nice to build a big lead. Like, sometimes in the NBA, like, I'm one to note, like, this game was never over at any point, because even with a 24-point lead in the NBA right now, like, that's not that big of a lead unless you're like 3 minutes to go. But the Hawks did a good job walling off. I know Nikhil was asked about it coming off the floor. Like, they made a couple big plays, just a play here, a play there. The Kennard shots. There's a bucket from Okongwu near the end of the game that I thought was a big play to kind of just kind of quell the tide when it was kind of swinging. I think he actually had 2 buckets in the last 4 minutes or so that were pretty big shots. So all things equal, it was a very good performance from the Hawks. And I'll leave it there for now. So in a second, I'll dive into how this game unfolded when it comes to the player-by-player evaluations, and plenty to get to on that, because I think the Hawks had a lot of guys who played very well in this game. That's coming up and more in just one moment. Basketball is here. There's nothing like being in the building for one of these games. The energy, the crowd, the first big run that gets everybody on their feet and gets psyched. And fans want to be there for those moments, and they do not want to be stuck refreshing screens or guess what kind of tickets are going to be available, what they're actually going to cost. And that's where Gametime comes in. The Gametime app actually gives fans the advantage back making it incredibly easy to score amazing tickets, fast, simple, and without any of the guesswork. Browsing the Gametime app is straightforward and intuitive. You can find tickets in just a few taps of your screen, and you can see the actual view from your seats before you actually buy the tickets, and that makes the process really, really awesome, and really you can be confident in the whole process because of that. Prices also include fees up front, so the total is clear before you actually start buying into the tickets. And at Gametime, it features like zone deals to help you unlock great seats at even better values, whether it's an NBA game or a football game or any other kind of live event. Everything is right there in one place. You can take all of the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNBA. That's LOCKEDON NBA. That's code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Download the Gametime app today and get in on the action. All right, to the player evaluations in this game, and a lot of positives, I would say, as you might expect for a solid, impressive road win. 9 guys appeared for the Hawks. The only guys who were available and active who did not play were Keaton Wallace and Mo Gay. I mentioned before, like, I would still play Mo Gay. Him and Asa, it's not crazy to play Asa over Mo. I'm not saying that it is. I would lean defense because I value that. I think the Hawks need that, but Asa's the better offensive player, so I get why that's leaning that way. Speaking of Asa, he didn't score in 11 minutes, missed both of his 3-point attempts, had an assist. I don't think he was terrible, but I think he was probably their weakest player in this one. Not a huge surprise. And we'll see if it ever goes back to Mo in certain matchups or what, or maybe it'll just be Asa until otherwise noted. Also, while we're here, Porzingis, I would guess, is not going to play tomorrow. It's a back-to-back. He's not played a back-to-back in a long time, so I would presume he won't play, and maybe Mo will be playing as a result of that. Speaking of Porzingis, 4 points, 8 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 steals, 2 turnovers. He was 0 of 3 from 3, 1 of 5 on 2. So he was not efficient. It was not a great Porzingis game individually. I know my guy Steph Noe of Scoring News shared this today. KP has the biggest on-off splits on the Hawks roster this year. I made a big deal out of it on Wednesday, and I think I stand by this. Like, he's a good player, and it's really very easy to see how he is impactful, even when he's not playing great. I think tonight is a great example of that. He wasn't great individually, and it still made a huge difference that he was available. It helps everybody. It helps the Kongwu. It helps the spacing on offense. It helps the rim protection, all that stuff. Like, I think it's notable that he wasn't even great here and still made a huge impact. Vit Krejci, kind of a quiet night, 8 points, 4 rebounds, an assist, a steal. Actually, a game best plus 15. I'm not really sure that was indicative of Vit. I thought Vit was like fine, but wasn't like he was fantastic. I thought he played well defensively, though, by his standards. I think he was probably better than usual on that end of the floor. Luke Kennard has been really, really good the last few games here for the Hawks. And I'm not trying to say that you should ignore everything else. I think he had a very poor start to the season. I did a segment, I think last week or 2 weeks ago, about how I think he needed to be better and shouldn't play more if he wasn't going to play better. And he's responded by the last 3 games. He's had 12 points, 15 points, and 12 points. And it's more than that. Like, he's being more aggressive. Like tonight, he took 5 shots, got to the line as well. Before that, he took 12 shots against Minnesota, took 8 shots against OKC. He's been, I got into this a little bit on Wednesday, but I want to say it again. They are letting him do the things that I was told they were going to let him do this summer that didn't really happen. Like, he's had the ball in his hands more often, which may not be the whole thing, but certainly he looks more empowered and more confident as a result of that. He's also competing defensively. He's not great, but certainly he can compete and be at least somewhat effective. But I think he was in this game. And again, those 2 shots in the fourth quarter were very big to avoid potential disaster. I thought he was a big plus in this one. To the starters, Risha Shea, 12 points, 5 rebounds, an assist for Zach in 22 minutes. That's the big number, 22 minutes. I don't know why Vit would play that much more than Zach in this game. It's the same old story. Maybe that's why Zach was frustrated. I think he should have played more. I think he played well in this game. I think defensively he looked good. Not much to add. I thought he was good. And we'll leave it there. Dyson Daniels, 11 points, 8 assists, 6 rebounds, 2 steals, and that undersells his performance. Obviously, the 8 assists are really good. I think he was in control of the offense, played well there, was decisive attacking the rim. Yes, the shooting is a problem. It is. But I think there's a caricature people have been making about Dyson's offense this year because he's not shooting the ball well. And he's not. He's definitely, it's a problem. I'm not saying it's not. But that also doesn't mean that he can't be effective. And I think we've seen that repeatedly where Dyson's still very good at basketball. His passing, his ability to attack the rim, his rebounding, and of course his defense, where he was outstanding against Jalen Brunson in this game. And it's not just steals with him. It never has been. He's always had great data one-on-one. He's an awesome player, and he was very good in this game. Okongwu, 23 points, 9 rebounds, 2 assists, 3 steals, 2 blocks. man, he was great. Obviously, he made his first 3 threes and then cooled off from there. But very productive, lead scorer on the team, rebounded well, played good defense, I thought, in this game. The 5 stocks is very impressive for him as well. I think Onyeka's having a really good season, and that was definitely the case tonight. Alexander Walker, 23 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals for Nikhil. He was 6 of 10 on 2s, 3 of 10 on 3s. Efficient enough, 23 points. As Kevin Chouinard just tweeted as I'm recording this, he's averaging 20 points a game this season still. He's been great and was in this game. And then Jalen Johnson, 18 points, 11 assists, 10 rebounds, 2 steals. Did have 4 turnovers. That's actually fine for him given his usage. 6 of 11 on 2s, 1 of 3 from 3. Missed three free throws, which is not great, but basically everybody did that today other than Porzingis. And I think Kennard didn't miss one either. But I thought Jalen was very good. His defense has been better the last couple of games as well. I was critical, and I think with good reason, of his defense for a large portion of December, despite his huge offensive numbers. He's been better there. Still the occasional or not so occasional mistake from Jalen defensively, but on the whole, if he defends like he has the last 2 games, the Hawks will be just fine. He's been totally fine on that end of the floor, and the playmaking, the scoring has all been there. And look, he's the only guy really that had to deal with a really tough matchup, and that he was guarded by OG Anunoby most of the game. And Anunoby is a top-tier defender. So for Jalen to do that on good efficiency and pass like that while being guarded by Anunoby is pretty impressive. With that said, the Hawks put together a good win here. No rest for the weary whatsoever. They go on the road to Toronto tomorrow. The Raptors have had the Hawks number this year. In fact, they've lost to them twice, both pretty decisively. It's been a while since they played the Raptors. The first game of the season was a disaster class from the Hawks. And then a few weeks later, they played them again and lost not quite as badly, but certainly not that impressively. I will note the Raptors have cooled a lot. They started the season 14-5. They are 6-10 since then, including a loss to the Jokic-less Nuggets on Wednesday. But this is a 2-game and 3-day set for the Hawks in Toronto. So they can go anywhere between 2-2 on the season series with the Raptors to 0-4. That would not be great. We'll see who plays on Saturday. One question, of course, about all of this stuff is about Trae Young, who did not play tonight. I think you see what you want to see, as always, when Trae doesn't play. I think defensively, the Hawks have a much higher ceiling without Trae. Not even worth debating that. It's very true. They also have a much lower offensive ceiling without Trae, which we saw at times in this game as well. They continue, as I said last night or 2 nights ago on the show, the record says what the record says. They have been better on the win-loss record without Trae this season. That does not mean they are suddenly better without him overall. I'm a big fan of nuance, and that does not have any. If your entire argument is win-loss record is this, by all means, go ahead. But I'm saying that now because I don't know if he plays tomorrow or not. He was questionable for this game. He's missed 3 in a row. Sometimes teams will hold a guy out an extra day when they know they're going to play the next day because it's a back-to-back, and I doubt the Hawks wanted to have Trae coming off an injury play back-to-back. We'll see. Also, with Porzingis, I presume he won't play tomorrow, so perhaps they would stagger Trae and KP. I don't really know. That's entirely a guess. No one's told me anything about that, and we will see. But certainly, I can already imagine the way the discourse will go if the Hawks have Trae tomorrow and don't win in Toronto. But it's a tough spot. The Raptors were not playing tonight, so it's a pretty significant rest disadvantage for the Hawks. But the Raptors are also struggling, so it's a very winnable game. I'm trying to look right now before I sign off to see if there is a FanDuel line for the game just yet, late here on Friday nights. And there is. The Hawks are currently 3.5-point underdogs, according to our friends at FanDuel for the game on Saturday, which is, notable, but nothing crazy. A winnable game. And as always, I'll have a breakdown of the game on this podcast. So please stay tuned. Please subscribe to Locked On Hawks anywhere you get your podcasts. If you're not already doing that, if you made it this far, I assume you probably are a subscriber. But if you're not, it takes 2 seconds to subscribe on YouTube, on Spotify, on Apple, auto download, all that fun stuff. Ratings and reviews appreciated. And also, please tell your friends. If you are a listener/viewer of the show already, I appreciate it. But do me a favor and find a Hawks friend in your life, or maybe 2 or 3 of them, and tell them about the show. Maybe they'll hate it. That's fine. But have them give it a shot. It'd be very, very helpful to me if you would do that. Also, please follow the show on Twitter/X at Locked On Hawks. Follow me either on Twitter or Blue Sky at BT Rowland. And then also my non-podcast coverage of the Hawks can be found at patreon.com/BT Rowland. All right, everybody, quick turnaround. We'll see you in about 24 hours. And I appreciate you being here as always. We'll see you next time.